session this evening, we are going to be hearing a brief slideshow about the modern zoning code process overview from Tim Keene.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for letting us attend this evening. And again, thank you for all you do for the city of Boise. I'm going to present briefly on what's going to be happening later this month when you have a series of hearings related to a new zoning ordinance for the city. So we thought we'd give you a preview with regard to how we're thinking that will go. These are the Planning and Zoning Commission's hearings, of course, so you can decide exactly how you'll proceed as you like, but we thought we'd present some parameters here for you tonight to think about as we prepare for those hearings. A few things I'll go through in my brief presentation. Again, what to expect during the hearing week of April 24th. A little bit about the staff report that we've provided to you recently, a fairly substantial staff report that all the Planning and Zoning Commission members received from us recently. The nature of your recommendation to City Council and a few next steps between now and the hearings. First, with regard to the longer process and where we stand today, of course, the ordinance that we have before us at this point as a community was released at the end of February. We've been receiving, as you know, lots of written comments so far, some of which you've received, but you'll receive all of it before the hearings later this month. We've distributed the first staff report, and I'll mention later, we'll give you another memo just before the hearings at the end of April. We'll have those hearings that week of April 24th. And then we'll go to public hearings again with the City Council in June. And again, people will have an opportunity to speak to City Council on this matter in June as well. Then we'll go through the official process, depending on the action at City Council, to the legal process to get it published. And then when we get to City Council in June, we'll have made a decision about the effective date of the ordinance, which presumably would be later this year. With regard to the hearings that week of the 24th, here's the schedule. Of course, we don't know at this point how many people will be speaking, but we're anticipating quite a few will. So we've got multiple days that week of the 24th to provide plenty of time for people to speak. We want to hear from everybody, of course. And the schedule that we're proposing is that we begin with a staff presentation on the proposed zoning code and comprehensive plan amendment first, then get into neighborhood associations testimony, and that's on the first evening, which would start at 4 p.m. I'll get to the conclusion of the meeting on each evening as well. We're saying 10 p.m. here, but of course that would depend on the number of people, and it's again to the discretion of the Planning and Zoning Commission when to conclude. But we'd have those neighborhood associations that first night. Then we'd move into just general public testimony on the second night, Tuesday, continue that into Wednesday, and then Thursday we're anticipating concluding that public testimony, then having as much discussion among the Planning and Zoning Commission members, questions related to all that testimony that you've received, your deliberations, and then a recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commission to City Council on these two matters. With regard to the hearings themselves, what we're recommending is that we give each of the neighborhood associations 5 minutes to testify, then give 3 minutes for each individual that wants to testify to the commission. And that we start with in-person testimony followed by online testimony at each of those hearings on each evening. We'll start at those designated start times, which I had on the previous slide. And then again, it's to your discretion as to when we conclude each meeting, but we were saying 10 p.m. just so we're not here too late each evening. And then again, we don't know yet how many will actually testify, so we will have to adjust based on the number of people that come and your decisions about when we transition to the next day based on the number of people that we're seeing and the length of the meetings and so forth. Our staff report, which you received recently, is also available on our zoning rewrite webpage here on the city's webpage, and you can get it at that QR code. You can get to that page on that QR code on this image here. I will go through the outline of what the contents of that initial report, what were the contents of that initial report that you recently received. It basically consisted of outlining what the commission is charged with at this time, which is 2 recommendations. One relates to the repeal and replacement of our Chapter 11 of our code, which is the zoning ordinance. So that's one action that the Planning and Zoning Commission will be recommending on. And then the second action is the amendment to our comprehensive plan, which addresses the zoning districts that we're proposing and the new standards that are part of this new proposed zoning ordinance. So the action on the comprehensive plan recommendation is a separate action from the one on the zoning ordinance. So we have 2 recommendations. You'll have 2 motions, 2 votes on these 2 separate items, the comprehensive plan amendment and the repeal and replacement of Chapter 11. A little deeper into those report contents that you recently received, they include the requirements that we're following related to the Idaho state law as it relates to land use planning in the state of Idaho. So an outline of those requirements. More on the process the timeline and the nature of the process, which has been a multi-year process, as you know. The public outreach that's been conducted over those years, of varied types, which I'll highlight in just a minute. And then an overview of the proposed code, the proposed new zoning ordinance, that is the map, the zoning map that's associated with that. And then the comprehensive plan amendment that you'll be deliberating upon and making a recommendation related to. And then the approval criteria and findings of fact as it relates to those 2 separate actions that the Planning and Zoning Commission will be speaking to and voting on, the code of text amendment and then the comprehensive plan amendment. That report also included these exhibits. So all of these exhibits here, including the conversion map and the amendments that we're proposing to our comprehensive plan, which is Blueprint Boise. Also, the comments that we've received from other agencies on the proposed zoning ordinance through March 22nd, and also the comments we've received so far, or by March 22nd, from residents of Boise and others. So you received your first kind of package of comments. I'll get back to that in just a minute. With regard to community engagement over this longer process to draft a new ordinance for the city, we've had these ways for people to participate and interact with the process. We've had 29 community conversations throughout the city through those multiple phases of the work. 5 surveys that have been done, other stakeholder meetings. We've made 7 presentations to City Council, the Planning and Zoning Commission, and Design Review Committee have had discussions or presentations along the way 12 times. And then, of course, we had a citywide advisory committee that was appointed by the mayor that's met 23 times. And most recently, in January of this year, they concluded their work as this was about to be released and proceed through these public hearings. So the nature of your work at the end of April and your recommendations to City Council, just wanted to clarify the nature of this deliberation and action of the Planning and Zoning Commission. This is a legislative decision in the sense that this is policy that you're making a recommendation on to City Council. And I think that's an important distinction to make. So with regard to the comprehensive plan amendment and the repeal and replacement of the zoning ordinance, at the end of the day, you're making a recommendation to the city's legislative body on whether those actions should occur or not. So it's really a yes or no. Now, as you're discussing all that's part of this, and even our recommendations to you when we come to you later this month, certainly you're going to have thoughts about different aspects of it, and it's great to put that on the record and have that part of your deliberation in whatever way you'd like. But certainly we're expecting, of course, that we're going to be discussing aspects of this code and where we are with it, and thoughts we have about amendments to it and you have about amendments to it. And that's good to be on the record. But then at the end, it's a recommendation to council on whether we approve these comprehensive plan amendments and zoning repeal and replacement or not. So like it says here on the right, so flag issues that you have in that discussion and deliberation, but then vote as a commission on whether to recommend this or not. Next steps, you will actually, each week, you'll be getting a transmittal of the comments we're receiving. Between now and the public hearings later this month, you'll continue to get this collection of comments that we're getting from other agencies and the general public, with the idea being that we don't just send everything to you at the end and you're just buried in comments. So the idea here was to go ahead and give you that first set of comments, which we've already done with this first report, but continue to correspond with you on a weekly basis, so you're seeing the comments as they're coming into us and aren't overwhelmed by them at the end of the process. So, and then right before the hearing, or late next week, really, we will send you a staff memo that includes kind of red line corrections to the code that's out there, because we know of typos and things that have to be just corrected, that are formatting and so forth. So we will send that memo to you before the meeting, just to clarify those things, so we don't have to get into explaining that in the hearings. So you'll have it beforehand. What are those corrections we're making that are just formatting and typographical? And so that's kind of a rundown of where we're headed this month, and wanted to give you some time to ask any questions related to any of those things. Of course, we've got our team here that's been working deeply on this, Andrea Tuning and Deanna Dupuy and Lena Walker in particular, that are here to help answer questions or get into any other aspects of this that you have on your mind that we want to talk about tonight.
Okay, Tim, thank you for the update so far. Any questions, gang?
I have Mr. Chairman.
Please, Milt. Good to see you.
Good to see you guys. Thank you. Thank you, Director Tim. I appreciate it. So I have an observation. This is also directed at us, right? Because this is a different situation. This is a legislative issue. It's not a permit hearing. So it's very different than our normal, the normal things before us. So in that respect, we have a lot of leeway as to how we want to run the hearing, when we want to ask questions, when we want to stop and talk about something. And I guess what I'm going to just throw out is, I think we need to be a little bit more creative and not just apply our standard template, because first of all, it's 600 pages of stuff. So it's really complicated. We could have 20 hours of testimony. It's really hard to sort of keep track of, just sit there and listen to 20 hours of testimony and then have intelligent deliberation about all that 20 hours. So I'm just wondering to fellow commissioners, because we can do it if we want to, do we want to break it up in some way, and we take questions, or we think about it in sections, or at the end of every of the 5 meetings or 4 meetings, do we stop and then at that point sort of workshop the couple of ideas that came out of that day, so that we can sort of keep track of it as we're going? I'll just leave that first to legal to, say if we're, he wants to keep us in bounds. But as I read it, the boundaries here are a lot, pretty broad.
Mhm.
And I just frankly don't want to listen to 20, 25 hours of people, going after this thing. And then at the end, trying to remember what someone said 20 hours ago.
Yeah, right. I think it's
So-
absolutely fair.
I'll leave it at that. And if you guys have an idea, like how do we do this so that it's not just, like interface was really hard because we had days and days of testimony spread out, and then where we couldn't ask any questions. We just have to sit there. We're all taking notes like crazy, and then we have to all figure it out, right? It's just not a very effective problem-solving process. And I think in this case, we would serve the city council best. And remember, that's all we're doing in this is serving the city council. That's it. We would serve them best if we could give them some fairly well-written and logical set of recommendations if we have them for changes, additions, or what have you.
Mhm.
So I'm going to stop there. And Tim, I'd welcome your thoughts or anybody else's.
Tim, any thoughts?
Well, I mean, that's a great point. And we can discuss, whether we got other recommendations for how to structure the hearing that could address those issues. Interested in everybody's thoughts on that, but we can take that into advisement. Mhm.
Yeah, I think I totally agree, Mel. I totally agree. Because otherwise we're going to get bombarded and then we lose things
Right.
in that process. We can't do that with this.
Well, one obvious, Mr. Chairman,
Mhm.
one obvious idea is to try to set out the testimony topically. The issue with that, though, is you, in theory, would like then to allow one person to testify multiple times because it'd be on different topics. And the code, that's hard for us to do because we don't track that really well. So we can't really restrict what the public wants to talk about in their 3 minutes of fame. So I'm sort of problem solving out loud because what I would like to do is have one day where we just talk about the new approval criteria that where certain things don't even come to us and certain things do. Like there's just a whole bunch of stuff that's pure procedural and has nothing to do with like setbacks and heights and densities. It's just, if it's this, it goes to an automatic approval. And if it's not this, it goes to that's like, I'd like to have a day where we just focus on the process, but I don't know how we're going to do it.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Meredith.
I don't know. I mean, I don't see how you can organize the public that way, right? So I can see excuse me, I can see a world where we can continue to ask questions, which I think is interesting and helpful as you're hearing testimony. That's something different that we don't typically do, but I don't see how you can tell the public that they can or cannot testify because we're on a specific day.
Well, were you going to go?
No.
I'm sort of wondering, and I'm asking you guys, like if you wanted to chunk this thing up into like 5 big bits so that our recommendations would all fall under one of these 5 categories. One of them is process, the other might be density, the other might be transportation, link, whatever, right? Whatever the 5 things are, because then we can put that up. We can have, our own whiteboards here. And as we come up with recommendations, we can journal it behind us so that we're sort of keeping a running track of all this stuff. And then when we come back to the deliberation on the last day, we can kind of say, no, yes, that's a good idea. That doesn't make blah, 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 blah. We can also use it as a way to like poll ourselves, like who thinks this is a good idea? Because otherwise we're going to end up with, 50 different little tweaks to this thing.
Right. And notes everywhere. Yeah. I mean, Tim, staff, are you guys seeing what you see as like categories of comments coming in? You be able to,
To some degree, that is the case. We've been discussing the same thing and discussing it in the context of the presentation that we make to you on the first night and that
Mhm.
it's likely we would address it that way. Like, here's these 5 to 10 things that we're hearing so much about. One of them is certainly process and
Okay.
present it that. So we were thinking we would present to you that first night that way and then come back to those 5 to 10 things after the hearing. I think we'll have a pretty good handle on what that collection of issues are going to be that are going to be, 95% of the discussion, that
Mhm.
we could come back in an organized way and say, okay, where do we stand on this collection of things, Y'all are talking through what is notoriously a challenged thing for cities and towns, right?
Mhm. Mhm. But we're up for it. We're game. We're up for it. Right, gang?
Mr. Chair.
John,
I
yeah.
like the idea of the parking lot of whiteboard or whatever. Is there a way that staff could support that so the public could see it rather than back here on our hand scratching, but maybe up there, easy to see. Here's what's come up. And so everyone that comes up to the podium has seen the issues that have come up and know that this isn't new.
Just worried about the size of the whiteboard right at the moment. It's going to be such a number of things. There's a way, I think, to kind of have the commission able to kind of work through it the way you're describing, but maybe it's not actually a whiteboard in the room. Maybe it's another mechanism that we have, and maybe it happens each evening, to say.
That's
here's-
what
Yeah, like a
here's where-
summary.
here's where we are
deliberation
so
at the
far.
end of every single meeting,
Yeah,
Yeah.
right? Where we say, these are the 3 or 4
right.
things that we want to come back and talk about at the end.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
again,
the-
we'll
the
think
overarching
through
theme
that.
for the night.
Yeah.
You were shaking your head.
I know, I changed my mind. It seems messy to me. I mean, okay, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, please.
I mean, I can, I don't know, Mel, how you can ask, like, if you're deliberating on a topic the first night, we're still going to hear public testimony the other 4 nights.
Right.
So it's tough. I mean, it's adding, so to me, the way I see this is adding so much to the plate because you're still going to have to deliberate again, right? To be fair to the public who testified after that moment.
Actually, no.
Well, no. but-
Legislative,
okay,
no. But what I have in mind is we just go around the table here and say, okay, we just heard 4 hours of testimony.
What are the takeaways?
What are the 3 things that you want to just journal? And we just do that. And so we're not voting or deliberating as in critiquing and arguing about, we're just saying, these are the 3 things that Ashley's was thinking about based on what we heard.
Yeah.
And then we use that as a tool at the end to go through and say, are we addressing all the issues that we had as we heard all this testimony? Just an idea. I mean, or we can just do it like we always do, which is just sit there for 20 hours and take notes.
Chris.
Yeah, just a thought here is that, I'd hesitate to commit us to try to summarize things at the end of the night, given that we will be here close to 10 o'clock and starting at 5. I suspect that might be a little tricky, especially night 3 and 4. But I'm wondering if maybe looking at the schedule, I see that we are having a 30-minute break at each night. I wonder if maybe taking 10 minutes before that break and just kind of, okay, what have we heard pre-break? And then maybe we do it again at the end, but we don't put the onus on everything for that day at the very end, just a way to break it up a little bit. Just a thought to get the tires on.
We can also just try something on the first day, and if we don't like it, we don't have to keep doing it. Like, that's what I'm trying to say here is we're not bound by our normal permit procedures, which, you know, we're in a tight box on those. By the way, we can also circulate, you know, as my understanding of legislative matters is if we put it into the public record, we can circulate emails about this stuff, right? It's like a committee hearing at the legislature, right? Where they, as long as you meet open meeting requirements, there's no ex parte, there's no, you know, there's none of that sort of judicial boundaries.
It's gonna be a partay.
Well, I think as we get into this a little deeper, right? You know, I'm sure we've all started reading our packets. We can continue to put some more thought to this because I think we can continue to discuss this, you know, as we get a little closer, right? It's not like we have to have this set in stone tonight by any means.
No.
Right. Tim, is there any, you know, I'm going to play like, I don't want to phrase it as worst case scenario. Let's say we end up filling up all of those nights, right? We even have to maybe pick up Friday night. We have that much testimony. We've built that into sort of the process and everyone's schedules, if that is the case that we find ourselves in.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Mhm. Yeah,
We'll be here as long as we need to be here.
we will. Yeah. I was trying not to say worst case scenario.
Yeah, sorry.
Just like you. But yeah, we're preparing for that. Mhm.
Excellent. Okay.
Mr. Chair, I got a question about process, I guess. Since we're making a recommendation to council, is the first move to recommend action on the comp plan because the zoning code is reflection of the comp plan, or is it? I got the impression from the slides it was zoning code then comp plan.
Right. It would be comp plan first and then zoning code.
Okay.
Mhm.
And then another question regarding recommended neighborhood testimony. So who are the recommended neighborhoods?
Well, that just means we're recommending that each neighborhood association be given 5 minutes. Yeah.
There's like 20 of them.
Yeah. There's more than that. It would,
Yeah.
we've looked
Yeah.
at it. If each testified for 5 minutes, that would be 3 hours of testimony. Mhm.
And I mean, do you have a picture, Tim, of like percent? Are we expecting 90% of the neighborhood associations to testify? Do you have any idea on that? Or is that,
Don't know that.
that's the
yet.
wild card also?
Mhm.
Okay.
From what I've gathered from the meetings that Andrea's run is that I'm guessing half of them. Does that sound right? But I had a question related to that, which is slipped my mind there. Sorry, I'll come back to it.
Okay. Well, I would certainly, I mean, getting back to Milt's first comments, right? I mean, I think I would certainly advocate for asking questions, you know, to each neighborhood association as they present, right? Because I think they're all going to have a different perspective. Well, may have a different perspective. So I think we definitely got to take advantage of that and having them at the podium, you know, when they're there and when it's fresh.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I just remembered.
Mhm.
So since we all know there's significant opposition and lots of hand waving, is there been a thought to actually reaching out to those organized opposition groups and giving them 5 minutes as well? Reject Boise up to them, for example. Just say, hey, Mr. Kangas, you got 5 minutes. As a just kind of a placating, give them the same footing as a neighborhood association. I know that's probably a difficult place to start. I'm throwing it out.
We have not discussed that. And, you know, we also have groups that are very much in favor of this, that,
Mhm.
so we really haven't discussed to any extent, you know, giving individual groups that have organized around opposition or support specific time, just the neighborhoods and then individuals.
Mr. Chair,
Mhm.
that makes me think that that was a poorly phrased suggestion because there is plenty of support and we're not going to reach out to them. So why give
Right.
the
Well, I think to
opposition?
be fair, right, you have to extend that invitation to both sides, right? Or all those groups, if we were to do that. So,
Just hard to tell.
yeah,
It's hard to draw the line.
yeah, absolutely.
Right.
So and when the public always has their opportunity, I suppose, Tim, too, any thought if we inevitably we're going to hear the same commentary, throughout the process. We've done that in the past where we've been very clear about what we've heard. Any concerns on your side if we are just kind of clear at the beginning of every meeting, or if we get, halfway through every night and we say, okay, we've heard these things, just to sort of kind of keep the process moving forward in a more timely fashion. So we're not just rehashing the same comments constantly. Any input there?
Well, I think that's what's going to happen,
Mhm.
and it's likely to happen. And I don't know that there's a way to not
To not
allow
say, yeah.
that to happen. Mhm.
Okay.
People need to be given that chance to speak and
Certainly.
give their perspective regardless.
Yeah, certainly. Okay. All right. Looks like that's all we have right now for you.
Well, thank you for this. I know it's a big undertaking. Appreciate, this is a special kind of public service in April for the Planning and Zoning Commission, and greatly appreciate it. This is such an important recommendation for the city. Everybody cares about this one way or another. Everybody legitimately cares about it. All the opinions are legitimate and helpful. So it will be interesting discussion about the future of Boise.
Certainly. Well, yeah, like I said, I think we're all looking forward to it. It'll be very interesting. I'm glad we're part of that process. And nice job to you and staff. It's been a huge lift to date. So
Yeah.
well done. Well
Sure.
done. And thanks for keeping us abreast
Yeah.
as you work through it as well.
Thank you all.
You bet.
Talk to you soon.
Excellent. All right. Thank you, Tim. Really appreciate that presentation. Do we want to break or do we want to head into agenda review? Agenda review?
All right. We're having a little sidebar. We can do an agenda.
Sorry,
review.
Crystal.
Meredith was on a roll.
No, I want to hear all of this. So let's get through agenda review. Okay, so tonight we've got a pretty short lineup. We've just got 6 items. To start off with, we do have 2 minutes that need to be voted on from March 6th and March 13th. And then for consent, we can try on items. Oh, sorry, we'll just go through it. Sorry. Number 1 is CZC 22-348. It's an appeal of the planning director's approval for auto sales in a C2D general commercial with design review zone. We are recommending denial of that, and so we will be hearing it. We've got another appeal, ROS 22-00110. That's at 2830 South Cloverdale. And it's an appeal of the planning director's approval of a record of survey for a minor land division on just under an acre in an R1C zone. We're also recommending denial on that, so we'll be hearing that item. Then we can get into attempting consent. Item 3 is SOS 23-5. It's at 10 North Wilson Street, and it's a waiver to the subdivision ordinance requirement to construct sidewalk as part of a minor land division. We are recommending approval on that, so we can try for consent. Item 4 is SUB 23-5 at 3770 North Jackie Lane. This is both a preliminary and a final plat for a residential subdivision comprised of 6 buildable lots on 0.88 acres in an R1C zone. We are also recommending approval on that, so we can try for consent. Item 5 is CAR 23-6. This is at 6559 East Zaffer Ridge Street. This is a modification to an existing development agreement to amend conditions on secondary access for the Rush Valley subdivision, situated across 18.4 acres in an R1C DA zone and an R1M DA zone. We got a late correspondence request for deferral on that. So it would be up to you all if you wanted to maybe move that up to item 1 so we can take care of that deferral request, because we did have some people signed up to speak. So whether or not we want to do that, probably want to just get that out of the way.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
What was that?
Yeah. They just want to go
Not to a
indefinite.
date certain as of now.
Okay.
And because we didn't receive a formal request, we might want to just have the applicant come up and give a brief description of why they'd like to, or
Okay.
just ask informally.
Sure. Okay.
So that's item 5. And then last tonight would be item 6, it's CUP 23-6, and that's at 6099 South Federal Way. It's a conditional use permit for 2 off-site advertising signs or billboards on 20.62 acres in an M1D light industrial with design review zone. We are recommending approval, so we can try for consent on that. So to recap, we've got minutes. We can try for consent on 3, 4, and 6. We will be hearing 1 and 2 for sure. And we've got a deferral request for item 5.
Okay.
Questions?
Milt? Okay. Yeah, gotcha. Okay. All right.
Excellent. I'll see you guys back at 6. All right. Good evening once again, and welcome to the Boise City Planning and Zoning Commission hearing. A few things to start out with for tonight's proceedings. Everyone from the public entering the hearing virtually has been automatically muted and cannot speak. As the item you're interested in comes up for discussion, you'll be called upon and unmuted. There is a chat function in Zoom. This is not part of the record and should only be used if technical difficulties arise. Our procedures for public hearings begin with a presentation from the planning team. Then we'll go to the applicant and then the representative of the Registered Neighborhood Association, followed by questions from the commission. After that, we proceed to public testimony, starting with those who are in person, then who signed up on the sign-up sheet in advance, and then anyone else who raises their hand virtually. If you are attending through your telephone, you can type in *9 to raise your hand. Each member of the public is allowed up to 3 minutes for testimony. We are strict with this time as it is limited in code. Finally, the applicant is allowed 5 minutes for rebuttal, after which the hearing will be closed and the commission will deliberate and render a decision. Mr. Chair, you have the floor.
Thanks, Crystal. Good evening. We are citizen volunteers appointed by the mayor and approved by the city council. We make final decisions on conditional use permits, variances and appeals, and recommendations to the city council on subdivisions, rezones, annexations, and code or comprehensive plan amendments. Any decision made tonight may be appealed to the city council, provided that the appeal is filed within 10 days of this hearing. In order to file an appeal, you must have given written or oral testimony at tonight's meeting. That's why it's important to give your name and address when you testify tonight. We utilize a consent agenda. This means that if the applicant agrees with the staff report and if there is no public opposition, that item will be placed on the consent agenda. All items that are placed on the consent agenda are approved with one motion without further public comment. For items not on the consent agenda, we will hold a full public hearing in the order just detailed a few minutes ago with staff, applicant, neighborhood association, and then public testimony. Thank you all for attending tonight. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Good.
Here.
Schaefer,
Here.
Squires,
Here.
Entered. Moore. Here. Gillespie,
Here.
Finfrock,
Here.
Stanley,
Here.
Mooney,
Here.
8 present, 1 absent.
Okay, thank you. Okay. We have a relatively short agenda tonight. We're going to move down and take care of one of the later items first here, and that's item number 5. This is CAR 23-6, the Conger Group. Project address is 6559 East Zaffrey Ridge Street. This is a modification to an existing development agreement to amend conditions on secondary access for the Rush Valley subdivision on 18.4 acres in R1C zone. So this item, I understand the applicant would like to defer. Is that right? Mr. Clark, can you come up, please? We just want to get on the record here that the plan is.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Heath Clark, 251 East Front Street in Boise, representing the applicant. And you're correct, we would like to defer. I understand that the commission would like a little bit of background on that. This application has a lot of history to it, several years. There's a lot of agency involvement with this application, including prior positions of agencies. We've had a number of conversations with the agencies, in particular fire. about the wildfire safety plan that we've provided. As we reviewed the staff report, it seemed to us that there was still some disconnect between staff and the agencies and as to what the exact positions are. And so we are asking for a deferral to be able to have a few more conversations, make sure that that's all very clear, that the public is very aware of what it is that we're proposing and what the agency's responses are before we come to a hearing. So-
Okay. Okay, great. That sounds good. Did you have a thought in mind about how far I'd like to defer?
The nearest available would be great. I understand that's June in talking to staff.
Okay, great. Okay, I think that does it for right now. Thank you,
Thank you.
Mr. Clark. So Crystal, it's June,
Mr. Chair, I believe the June meeting is June 5th.
June 5th. Okay. Okay. So per our discussion just now with the applicant would like to defer this item to June 5th. If you're in attendance here tonight to testify regarding this item, again, it's CAR 23-6 regarding Rush Valley subdivision. Is there anybody here that'd like to testify that cannot attend the meeting on June 5th? Because we're going to be hearing that item now on June 5th. Sir, come on up here, please. So just to be clear, you cannot attend that meeting on June 5th?
As far as I know right now, I cannot.
Okay. Staff, are we good to go ahead and take his testimony now then? Okay, great. Sir, if you can start with your name and address for the record, please. You'll have 3 minutes to testify.
Mark Hoffman, 5920 East Bend Ridge Street in Painted Ridge subdivision. You also have this in your packet as a late entry.
Okay.
These comments are for the proposal for the Conger Rush Valley subdivision off Columbia Road. I have appeared before both you and the Boise City Council on numerous occasions in opposition. This proposal was rejected, then modified with strict conditions. A secondary road access must be completed were those conditions before the Conger sub would be considered. Now we're here again with absolutely no meaningful changes to the original proposal. Those conditions have not been met, as I predicted in my letter and comments of 2021. And please note comment number 3 below. Number 1, Conger was originally planning on building 440 homes with no restrictions. 2, this plan was modified by the fire chief at that time so that all new homes must include a fire sprinkler system to mitigate the inherent danger that exists. The previous fire chief condemned the original owners to a fire danger of which they were not aware when they purchased. This is not an example of buyer beware, but an incompetence at best, negligence at worst. If a fire were to occur, and 3 have, lives of innocent people are at stake. 3, Conger now proposes to eliminate even the sprinkler system in any new homes. Here's my comment from 2021. The original proposal has been modified so that only 70 homes can be built until a secondary access road is built. This is even though the development has only a wish and a prayer that this will ever happen. I've spoken to the lawyers of Micron who tell me that they, Simplot, and the Simplot family have no intentions of selling any land to the developer for a road. Therefore, I can reasonably predict that Conger will come back to you after his 70 homes are built with a story of how he tried, was unsuccessful in convincing the 3 players to acquiesce. I did my homework, contrary to you and the city council. 5, Columbia Road itself is inadequate to handle the additional traffic flow, has been shown by the Micron traffic study. This was also confirmed by the ACHD reports, which allow for mitigations to its own regulations. 6, one change has occurred, and that's that Micron now plans an expansion, which will add another 2,000 to 4,000 employees, possibly using a road which is already inadequate in case of a fire or other emergency. If a fire were to occur on the south side, forcing everybody to use the north side, there's 5,000 employees leaving before the residents of Painted Ridge or the other 2 subdivisions can exit. These points, the The new Conger, this is 7, the new Conger proposal adds that they will put some fire blankets and water in a pavilion storage area. This is insulting. Is there an inherent fire danger? If so, then fire blankets and water are an admission of the danger, hardly adequate to save thousands of residents.
Mr. Hoffman, I'm afraid your time is over. Your 3 minutes is up.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. All right. I'm going to do one more check-in. Anybody else that needs to testify tonight and cannot attend the hearing on June 5th for this item?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Gillespie.
move that we defer CAR 23-6 to our June 5th meeting.
Second.
Great. I have a motion to defer and a second. Any further discussion? Okay. Will the clerk please call a roll then?
Stead,
Aye.
Schaefer,
Aye.
Squires,
Aye.
Moore,
Aye.
Gillespie,
Aye.
Pinfrock,
Aye.
Danley,
Aye.
Mooney.
Aye.
All in favor, motion carries.
Okay. All right. Thanks. See you on June 5th. Okay. All right. Now we'll go ahead and return back to the top of our agenda and we'll have a couple items eligible for consent. Without objection, I will place the meeting minutes, our meeting minutes from March 6th and March 13th on the consent agenda. And then we'll move right along to item number 3. This is SOS 23-5 Cuba Homes LLC. Address is 10 North Wilson Street. This is the waiver to the subdivision ordinance requirement to construct curb, gutter, and sidewalk as part of a minor land division on 0.37 acres in an R1C zone. Is the applicant present this evening? Right. And are you in agreement with the terms and conditions of the staff report? Okay, let the record show the applicant is present and in agreement with the staff report. And is there anyone here tonight hoping to speak in opposition to this item? Okay, thank you. We'll go ahead and place item number 3 on the consent agenda. And then right along to item number 4. This is SUB 23-5 Glory Subdivision at 3770 North Jackie Lane. This is a preliminary and final plat for a residential subdivision comprised of 6 buildable lots on 0.88 acres in an R1C zone. Is the applicant present this evening? Great. And are you in agreement with the terms and conditions of the staff report? Okay. Let the record show the applicant is present and in agreement with the staff report. And is there anyone here hoping to testify in opposition to this item? Okay. We'll go ahead and place item number 4 on the consent agenda. And last but not least, item number 6. This is CUP 23-6 Lamar Outdoor Advertising of Idaho, 6099 South Federal Way. This is a conditional use permit for 2 off-site advertising signs on 20.62 acres in an M1D zone. Is the applicant present?
Mr. Chair, they're
Yeah,
online.
she's online. Mr. Miller, are you in agreement with the terms and conditions of the staff report?
Mr. Chair, I'm having technical difficulties. Please hold.
Okay. Staff, do you think it's acceptable to take his silence as he's in agreement? Okay, very good. We'll go ahead and take that as a yes, he's in agreement with the staff report. And then is there anyone here hoping to testify in opposition to this item? Again, this is item 6, Lamar Outdoor Advertising on Federal Way. Okay, we'll go ahead and place item number 6 on consent then. I think with that, I will entertain a motion regarding the consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Danley.
I'll make a motion that the consent agenda, inclusive of the meeting minutes from March 6th and March 13th. Item number 3, SOS 23-05 Cuba, I think it is, homes located at 10 North Wilson Street, a waiver to the subdivision ordinance to construct curb gutter and sidewalk. Item number 4, SUB 23-05 Glory subdivision, 3770 North Jackie Lane, a preliminary and final plat for a residential subdivision. And item number 6, CUP 23-06 Lamar outdoor advertising, Idaho 6099 South Federal Way, a conditional use permit for 2 offsite advertising signs be approved with their respective terms and conditions in their staff reports.
Second.
Okay, thanks. I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any further discussion? Okay, we'll go ahead and call the roll. Commissioner Danley was the motioner and Commissioner Stead was the second.
Stead,
Aye.
Schaefer,
Aye.
Squires,
Aye.
Moore,
Aye.
Gillespie. Finfrock,
Aye.
Danley,
Aye.
Mooney.
Aye.
All in favor, motion carries.
Okay. All right. Okay, thanks everybody for those items. And we will return back to the top of our agenda at this point for item number 1. This is CZC 22-348 VRCK LLC. Address is 10249 West Fairview Avenue. This is an appeal of the planning director's approval for auto sales in a C2D zone. And first, we're going to hear from staff. Hi, Caitlin.
Hi. Good evening, Mr. Chair and Commission members. I'm Caitlin Manouge with the Design Review Division, and this is an appeal of the administrative approval of CZC 22-00348 for auto sales. The subject property is at 10243 West Fairview Avenue in the C2D zone in an existing shopping center east of 5 Mile Road. And for some background information, the applicants own the parcels you see outlined in pink, and then the appellants are associated with the parcel to the west highlighted in blue. And that owner is VRCK LLC, and the tenant is Burt McDowell of McDowell's Specialty Repairs. And at the northeast corner is the existing auto sales use that would like to expand onto this portion of the subject property. The zoning certificate was administratively approved on February 2nd, 2023, and the decision was appealed by VRCK LLC on February 10th. Their grounds for appeal include that the auto sales use is not allowed by the recorded declaration of restrictions and grant of easements document for the shopping center, which was submitted as part of the record. They also state the applicant cannot meet the zoning ordinance parking requirements. The auto sales use is allowed in the C2D zone per the table of allowed uses. The city cannot prohibit a use based on the private declaration of restrictions document. Therefore, this is a private dispute to be settled outside of the city's process and is not a valid ground for appeal. In terms of the parking requirements, the zoning ordinance requires parking for a shopping center at one parking space per 300 gross square feet of floor area. The portion of the shopping center that the applicant owns is 69,126 square feet, requiring them to provide a minimum of 231 parking spaces that cannot be used for auto sales. The applicant's site plan indicates they have at least 30 excess parking spaces that could be used for auto sales. Additionally, the approval contains several conditions to ensure the required parking is available and compliant, and we can review those in detail if you would like. Therefore, the approval ensures the parking requirements are met, and this is not a valid ground for appeal. In conclusion, the planning team recommends the Planning and Zoning Commission deny the appeal and uphold the approval with conditions. And the appellants are in person and have a presentation available.
Okay, thank you, Caitlin. And next, we're going to hear from the appellants.
Preston Rudder, 251 East Front Street, Boise, Idaho. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And a few housekeeping items. I'm here on behalf of Burt McDowell's, who is the tenant. The named applicant is the property owner and the landlord. And for terms of my presentation, I'll refer to the applicant as Fund Zone generally. Really, there's three things that we need to consider on this appeal. One, there's actually two other projects that are concurrent and parallel with this application. And those have to be considered tonight. Second, there's evidence before you right now in your packet that actually shows Fund Zone cannot meet the required 231 that staff has required. And in fact, the city actually applied the wrong calculation for parking requirements. In fact, they required too few. We've seen an overlay of what's going on here. To put it in perspective, why we need to consider these three other, all three uses, because they're all intertwined. As you can see here, the car sales is the applicable application here. Adjacent to it, you have shed displays, and to the south is the 500-pound gorilla in the room. That's the fast lanes. That is an indoor go-kart recreation facility. And they are all vying for the same area for parking space. This has become a congested, squozen area for parking and must be considered at this point. I want to show you for Fund Zone that this is not just a rumor has it on the street. This is formal action has been taken. Note here, all the applications for various permits by Fastlane. I can't fit it on one slide. They've all been issued or are ready to go. And I want to draw the commission's attention to the final one here. A building permit is ready. They're waiting in the wings and they have to be considered together tonight. Were we to view this in isolation, it's going to create a log jam and bigger issues down the road. So it's incumbent upon the commission and all of us here to really look at this holistically. And per code, you can consider all the relevant evidence you need in making this decision tonight. It's not out of the picture. As noted before, this is an imminent act. They are anxious to start. They're behind schedule. Obviously, it was supposed to come in 2022. So this is really waiting in the wings. Note here, this is without fast lanes in place. You can see the parking lot is already fairly full. Note there on the far left side of the screen, you can see a little clip of a shed. I want to give a bird's eye view of what's happening here and why it is such an issue. What you see highlighted here in yellow, this is the second project. So I've mentioned Fund Zone. That's the other one swirling, waiting in the wings. You also have a CZC application for shed displays. They've submitted all their materials for it. In fact, its number is the one right after this, and it's waiting in the wings as well. You can see that these sheds are occupying no less than 20 stalls. And particularly the ones you see on the left, Burt McDowell will give you a better picture of how this has affected his business. I'll let him do that, but I just want to note here of how this is encroaching and squeezing him out in competition with many other tenants in the shopping center. And as noted in the staff report, thank you, there is a underlying private use restriction agreement. And we get that that is another matter, but it can't be totally ignored here. And we get it's not the province of you to decide that. But there are matters here that you can and actually should decide tonight that have bearing on this. You have people parking in the drive aisles to examine these sheds. It's causing congestion. It creates potential safety hazards as formerly visible drive aisles with cars not quite as tall as storage sheds for visibility. Now you're blinded. And this creates a whole mess that we are trying to sort out. And I want the commission to know that in good faith, my client is working this out. We are trying our best on the private matter, but we have to defend and preserve their rights. And that's why we're here tonight. So the parking requirements, how you would get to this number of 321, that seems to be the magic number here tonight, is calculated off of total square footage. Noted here in yellow, this is the applicant's parcels that they own. Collectively, it's 69,000 and change for his total square footage. However, like as I mentioned, the evidence before you on page 32 and 33 of your packet It shows a recent survey. And from that, there's only 222 existing stalls. You've heard from the applicant's materials that they claim that they have 231 parking spaces. I want to park on this slide and focus your attention here to your right. Note here this the diagram they've submitted. At the bottom, you'll see that proposed car lot and sheds is blanked out. It is occupying those stalls. It says, however, that they have 231 parking spaces, and that's without or not including the proposed car lot and the sheds. However, we have a survey, as I mentioned, recent survey that shows that without the sheds in place, without the cars occupying these stalls, there's actually only 222. That is a massive chasm in terms of calculating parking numbers. And we need to bring this to the commission's attention that it is not just a straight up 231. They check all the boxes. And that's why we're here tonight. The city, as I mentioned, my third point, incorrectly calculated to 231. In fact, it's too few. And here's why. The city takes the stance that it kind of neutralizes all the uses in that shopping center and generally labels them as retail, just a generic label as retail. The parking requirements for that are 300 square feet requires one parking stall. That's how we get the 231. As I mentioned, there's only 222. Take away the 32 spaces that the car sales would occupy. Take away the 20 for the sheds, which is right behind this in its application. We get to 170 effective available parking spaces. To further constrain the situation, that doesn't even take into consideration that there needs to be 7 ADA spaces, one of which is for a van, and those require a lot more feet. Second, there has to be loading spaces. Those can't occupy parking. And there needs to be 23 covered biking spaces. I would note the correct calculation is found on this slide. This whole application has to be considered in all 3 levels: the cars, the shed, and fast lane. That would be an indoor recreation use as defined in your code. Under that calculation, and we're being favorable here, I mentioned on that slide a few back that there's 52,646 square feet. If you were to partition that down and pare it down to where the go-karts actually would go, it's 38,107 square feet. So that's being even generous to the applicant. Applying the correct use, not just a generic one size fits all, but actually applying the exact code use of indoor recreation, we get to 381 required parking stalls. Again, you got to subtract off the top. 32 for the cars, 20 for the sheds. Again, you're at 170. That's a delta or difference of 211. This is substantial. Indoor recreation requires for every 100 square feet, there is 1 parking stall. And for obvious reasons, this is in your code for obvious reasons. This is a more intense use. You're going to see this spike. You're going to see large parties come there, and it's really putting a squeeze on the property. We're not asking you to solve a private dispute. We're asking the city to actually apply what's in its code. Rather than a generic use designation, it needs to be what it actually is. And we can't ignore these other 2 applications. It's just kicking the can down the road and is actually going to make further issues for this commission and applicant and for us particularly. The city required too few. I'd like to turn it over if there's any questions at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Ritter. We're going to sit down on questions for right now.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
First, we're going to hear next from the applicant. You're fine.
Good evening, commissioners. My name is Bradley Gorange. My address is 16485 Orchard Avenue, Caldwell, Idaho, 837-607. I'm here in support of the Fairview Fun Zone Incorporated's zoning certificate, CZC 22348. This zoning certificate has been appealed for 3 reasons on the application. You guys will be able to see that a private party declaration prohibits auto sales anywhere in the shopping center. Number 2 reason was a private party declaration prohibits auto sales in the proposed location, which I think you can combine into one application. And the third one, the applicant cannot satisfy the parking requirements of this project. I will briefly mention the declaration referred to in the first 2 reasons that were drafted. That it was drafted over 43 years ago between the owners of parcel 1, 2, 3, also of the Kmart Corporation, Albertsons Corporation, Payless Drug Corporation, and the Citizens National Bank. Now, none of the original drafters of this document are even involved in the ownership or operation of the center any longer. It's been long gone. In fact, if you dig into that, and I know that you guys aren't, it's a private party you're not interested in, but the appealing party is in violation of multiple provisions of this declaration that they fail to address when they did the appeal. So I do understand that the city of Boise has no authority to enforce private agreements, and I appreciate that for sure. The third reason, applicant cannot satisfy parking requirements. I will dispel that statement with a little background of the Fairview Fun Zone Incorporated. Fairview Fun Zone Incorporated purchased the Mid-Valley Shopping Center in January of 21 with the goal of renovating and improving the property. Our intentions are to provide opportunities for additional employment and business for the city of Boise. We have been updating and maintaining the property for over 2 years. The property consists of approximately 66,000 square foot of commercial space located on 5.6 acres in a C2D zone. There are over 398 linear feet of Fairview Avenue frontage, which we feel are very valuable. Part of our updating consists of having additional business use the property for their prosperity. We approached Eddie Christensen, owner of Instant Equity Auto, about expanding his dealership that would allow more Fairview frontage for him to display his fine automobiles. He expanded in early 21. We were unaware of our obligation to obtain zoning certificate for this use. When we were approached and made aware by code enforcement that we were in violation, we immediately contacted planning and zoning and started the process to obtain the correct documentation, because we definitely want to be in compliance with city codes for sure. It has been an awesome education, to say the least, for me as I've never owned a property like this before. So big learning curve. And I want to put a hand out for the planning and zoning people. Were very patient with me, and they gave me a lot of great input and advice and kind of helped me muddle through the process. So we did finally get the application put in, and it did come back approved, which then the reason we're here today is, the appellant doesn't want us to improve the property, I guess. It doesn't make any sense on that to me, but I'm assuming that you've all looked at the application that we have submitted, and the conclusion of the planning team that to deny the appeal and uphold the approval of Z2 22-348. I want to give you a little background on the go-kart track that they brought to the attention of you guys. I know it's not the reason we're here, but I feel compelled to kind of give you a little background on that. Actually, let me finish here. When Fairview Fun Zone purchased the property, it was at 56% occupancy. Today, the property is at 100% occupancy. This is good for the city of Boise, and it's also good for the the neighbors around the facility. Our largest tenant, Zamex Incorporated, owns and operates Fastlane Indoor Car Racing. Zamex is currently renovating and upgrading 38,000 square foot with plans to shift their current operation to the Fairview location. Fastlane Indoor Car Racing has been in business in Boise, Idaho for over 20 years. We have a great track record. We've had no issues. In fact, the current location is located on the northeast corner of Franklin and Cloverdale. There are approximately 51 parking spaces available for the 35,000 square feet that we occupy in that building. Now, if you equate the parking spaces per square foot, this equates to 1 per every 700. We have 1 parking space for every 700 square feet of available space to us. Seems like a pretty high number because 1 per 300 is a pretty good norm for what we're talking about. And that's what we use in our calculations. Well, let me explain the operation better so you can understand why parking won't be a problem at the new location. For those of you that have never visited our location, which maybe hopefully y'all have been there, Fastlane provides their patrons of all ages the opportunity to race high-performance go-karts indoors in a safety-themed environment. The racetrack itself uses over 25,000 square feet of total space. But at any single time during the operation, there are never more than 25 individuals in this 25,000 square feet. For safety reasons, we limit the amount of carts on the track to 10 at a time. So that's only 10. In the background, there can either be 10 extra people that are either on the track or they're getting in their cars, getting ready to be on the track. We also have up to 5 personnel, providing safety for these patrons. So keep in mind the numbers, 25 people in 25,000 square feet is all that will ever use the majority of this location. The average consumer stays approximately an hour during the visit. Fastlane is open 10 hours a day, with the busiest times from 5 to 10 p.m. at night when most other businesses are closed. So even if there was an issue perceived, that it's not there. The business model will stay the same at the new location. We don't plan on changing anything. We just had an opportunity to purchase a piece of property, renovate it, and make things better for people of the city of Boise. In closing, I'd like to just state one fact. Fairview Fun Zone provides more parking than required. And in my rebuttal, do I get a rebuttal or not?
You will.
Yeah, in my rebuttal, I'll put together some numbers. I wasn't prepared for the numbers that they showed, but in their one parking list survey, it was a land survey that was done prior to our purchasing the building. It's actually a requirement that we required to have it purchased. The numbers are flawed in that. I had it revised, got the copy this morning, and I'll figure out, I think I sent it to Caitlin. I think we're going to be able to get it on there in my rebuttal to show what the real numbers are, because they are a little miscrewed from the applicant of the appeal. So I will follow up with that in my deals. And I thank you greatly for your time.
Okay,
Do
great.
you have
Thank
any
you.
questions, I guess?
We'll do questions in 1 minute.
All right.
Yeah, great. Thank you. First, we're going to check in, make sure, see if anybody from the West Boise Neighborhood Association is present. Okay, doesn't look like it. So we'll go ahead and open this up for any questions by the commission of staff, the appellant, or the applicant.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Mooney.
question for staff. From my reading of the testimony from the appellant, the applicant, this is hinging on the parking code calculation from either retail space or commercial indoor recreation. That's kind of what it seems to hinge on. Could you talk about what that looks like?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Mooney, the subject of this application was for auto sales. When we looked at the parking requirements, we see that this is a shopping center. So we used the shopping center 1 per 300 square foot calculation. The go-kart use is not currently in there. So we did just use the shopping center calculation. Any future uses will require the parking to be reevaluated again. We do have several conditions of approval as well related to the parking. Right now, the parking, you can see it, it's not very striped anymore. It's kind of all faded. So you can see that they're going to have to restripe their parking lot as one of the requirements in their approval. We calculated 266-ish parking spaces currently. So that would leave them more than 30 more than what's necessary for the existing shopping center. If they do introduce additional uses in the future, we would be reevaluating the parking, but that's not part of this application.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, John. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Doesn't look like we have any questions right now. I think
Thank
we're all
you.
set. Oh,
I had a
Mr. Pinbrook.
Question.
Yeah.
So there is a pending application for the fund zone, correct? Is that right?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Finbrock, it looks like there are some permits where they've started some building permit work. That has not come across planning yet, so we have not evaluated the go-kart use.
So quick follow-up. So there is a potential that you would have to decline that application based on parking requirements with the given numbers. Is that correct?
Correct. If a new application comes in and we evaluate parking and there's not enough parking, they would either need to choose a different use or request a parking reduction.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Chairman.
Oh, sorry, Commissioner
So-
Gillespie.
So just to be clear, Caitlin, so the whole question of how much parking, the whole argument he put forward about the parking requirements for a go-kart operation are different than, I don't know, a theater or whatever the code is sort of contemplating, that would all be considered once we have the fund zone application, once the city gets it. So procedurally, I think, is that what you're saying?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Gillespie, correct. We don't have anything in front of us for the fund zone go-kart use, so we can't really speculate as to how big it will be or what that parking calculation would be.
Okay. All right. Thanks, gang. Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Now go ahead and open this up for any public testimony on this item. Anybody here to testify on this item tonight? The podium is free. Okay, we'll check in. Well, you guys you'll get rebuttal. Okay, thank you. All right, we'll check in with folks online. If you're online, you'd like to testify on this item, please go ahead and raise your hand. Okay, we'll move right along into rebuttal then. So up first for rebuttal is the applicant. So Mr. Gringe, you're up first for rebuttal. Then the appellant would come up for rebuttal. So you get to rebut yourself here.
They told me that's how it would work, and it confused me because I thought that's odd, but
Yeah.
it is how it is. Huh?
Mhm.
So, Caitlin, did we get anything on there?
Would you like the Alta survey?
What I would like is the one that was the survey, yeah, the land survey. Because I was looking over this, trying to prepare what we're talking about, and I did pull up the survey that was done, and I immediately called the surveyor that was from Teeley Surveying did it. And I had an appointment, went over and talked with Mr. Teeley about it. And he was scratching his head quite a bit because it seems that he had transposed. Earlier, you had heard testimony that there was in actuality only 222 spaces on property. And he was scratching his head and his calculations got transposed. There was 222 that were necessary out of his original one said 255. So if you can follow me, it said 255 needed and only 222 available. But if you transpose that, which he redid the survey for us, and I think I can't really see it, but when I picked it up today, it's showing now 222 needed per the square foot per 300, one car parking per 300 square feet. Oh, there you go. There it is. He got it transposed back. So now required is 222 for amount of square footage we have. In actuality, existing, he shows is 270, and he actually missed 5 or 6 other ones that he had missed prior to. So I plan on getting that revised as well. So the number will creep up a little bit even more. So we are very close to, in my calculations, we're over if we use the same calculations. Now I know there's I heard a statement of that there's going to be big parties in that. And I think I kind of let you guys know that, our current operation is, we don't have large volumes of automobiles parking for our establishment. I do understand that we have other tenants in the building. Most of their uses, I think, would fall under the one car per 300. So that's why we just kind of stuck to that number even for ourselves. I anticipate that we'll probably have to do a parking lot study when we get ready to, get our fast lane occupancy permit done. So I'll probably get started on that because we'll be able to do it in our current location. It'll be super easy. We've been there 20 years. It'll be pretty easy to kind of figure out exactly what the parking requirements, we should expect at the Newman. I think that's about all I have.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. And then next we'll hear a rebuttal from the appellant.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I brought up Burke McDowell. You want to state your address?
4303 East Hubbard Road, CUNA 83634.
That'd be helpful to have Bert up here in case any questions would be directed to him, and he can speak more to the day-to-day impact. Just a few notes here on rebuttal. I think the applicant's testimony and their rebuttal just confirms that really all 3 of these should come up together. There's a lot of intertwined parts. They're all swirling together, and there could be an unintended domino effect that could just make this more of a mess. We appreciate that they're willing to improve the shopping center. Bert can talk to that. And we're trying to do that on the private lane, but there's also a public facing lane before you tonight with rights on the line that we have to preserve. Second point, the parking study, I think, goes into that same argument that we need to see all 3 of these together with a verified study. The applicant pointed out the 252 versus 222. If that could be pulled up again, Caitlin, I just want to draw the commission's attention to it to clarify. The column on the left was prepared by the surveyor as his best estimation, essentially, of a legal conclusion, what would be required per code. That's what the left is. That's not saying that's how many spaces, physical spaces, are available. The right column states that that's what's existing. So the commission should disregard the 252. The real number here is 222 for existing. And as we stated in our presentation, 381 should be the ultimate number, knowing that all 3 of these uses, they are hook, line, and sinker together. They're inextricable from one another. And I guess the catch, just in one phrase, this is trying to put 20 pounds in a 10-pound bag. This lot is being overly used, and we've seen that here. There's a lot of ambition by applicant, and we believe, and there's good evidence before you, that they are ambitious, and this won't be the end of it. And so we want to be cautious and prudent in how we approach this, especially the commission, knowing that there is a pending already before you CZC for the sheds, and waiting in the wings is the 500-pound gorilla of the fast lanes. I'd like to maybe turn some time to Bert to comment about his business and his perspective.
Thank you. Oh, thank you. I'm Bert McDowell, and we have a little shop up here on Fairview. We repair vinyl, leather, hard plastic, and fabric wherever it's found. That, any kind of everywhere's. And we have a fleet of vehicles. We also have the shop location. We bought that in 2014. We've been operating out of it after renovating the service drive. It used to be a bank, and and putting on an addition on the south side. And we're, Lord's good to us. We've been growing, and more people have been coming and using our services. And we've been utilizing, we have a front door going towards the mall and a back door going towards where the sheds are. We're getting squeezed. Our customers are competing with there's 2 grocery stores, a hair barbershop, a skateboard play retail, and a pretty popular gym that takes up about half of that spot. We're all contending for these 47 spaces that are in front of our place now. With reducing the common, and believe me, I love seeing these small the businesses, prospering. But what I am fearful for is now taking away. I have a different calculation. I think there's 68 spaces lost, but if it's 52, whatever, between those areas, now we're getting down to, the Sabres parking, the customers are already parking over in front of our place. So I'm just letting you know, it's getting too congested. We need to make sure that there's plenty of customer parking for the benefit of all the businesses there. That's really what I'm about. So
Thanks, Bert. I might just add the number 266 that we've heard tonight from city. That's a number, a first impression, and that's fine. We're working through this as best we can. Even with that, the conditions that are on this already require that parking spaces occupied by a car cannot be counted. There's no reason to think that's not going to be the same on the sheds. So you got to shave that off the top. Even with 266, you shave those off, they still can't make it. And just want to reiterate that whatever way we cut it, we don't think they get there based off the proper definition of indoor recreation use that we know is pending. And we've heard that testimony tonight. We'll stand for questions if any.
Okay. I think we're all set with questions.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, we'll go ahead. That does it for our testimony. We'll go ahead and bring this back before the commission to render a decision. Again, this is CZC 22-348.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Finfrock.
I move that we deny the appeal and uphold the approval of CZC 22-348 for all the reasons outlined in the staff report.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion to deny with a second, motion to deny by Commissioner Finfrock with a second by Commissioner Squires. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Please.
just a couple points. Auto sales are allowed in the C2D zone. I know that came up, and I don't know if it was public comment in our packets or out here, but it is an allowed use. And the private owner's agreement cannot be considered as authority, at least for planning and zoning. So I think anything that, maybe that's a remedy that, the applicant and the appellant can take into consideration outside of this forum. But as far as the parking, the city calculated parking per the code based on the current application and the conditions in front of them. And so it doesn't take into consideration, potential or future uses. So what we're looking at is the numbers for the current uses. And I think for that reason, we should deny the appeal.
Okay, thanks, Commissioner Finfrock. Any other discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Squires.
I don't really have much to add. I trust our staff to have looked into this thoroughly. Clearly, there's been another parking survey, and based on the evidence in front of us, I believe we need to deny the appeal. So with that, I'll be obviously seconding the motion on that.
Okay, okay, thanks. Bill?
Mr. Chairman.
Please.
Yeah, I think the fundamental sort of foundational or philosophical question here is, in hearing this particular application, how do we think about what is allegedly coming down the road? And the argument was made by the appellant that, we should rightfully consider that. I'm not here to say whether or not we can in a legal sense, because James gets nervous when we make those kind of blanket statements. I would say in this case, I think it's in sort of the best interest of the city and kind of what the criteria are that we not, make a formal consideration of the fun zone or the go-kart application at this time. I think the time to do that is when that application is submitted. And so I understand the appellant's concerns. I just think the timing is a little off, that that issue per se is not before us yet. And so in particular, what that means technically is I agree with the way the city treated the parking calculation as a whole. And it may change, it may not. I assume, we're going to have a hearing and debate whether a go-kart application is more or less parking intensive than, say, a theater or whatever the 1 in 100 standard is. And the appropriate place to do that is when we have a go-kart application, which we don't have. So I'll be voting in support of the motion.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Okay. I'll also be supporting the motion. I agree with comments by my other commissioners. I think we have to make our decision based on the information that we have at hand, not the information that we might have in the future. So it's, at some point, I think the private agreement, the landlord has to be realistic about the number of stalls they have on this property and that the uses that are appropriate there. Code is one thing. The private agreements are another, which we can't get involved with. So I also will be supporting the motion, and should we see this again in the future, we will reevaluate at that time regarding all the various uses that are on the property. Okay. All right, we'll go ahead and call the roll. Again, we have a motion to deny the appeal of CZC 22-348. Motion to deny was by Commissioner Finfrock, and the second was by Commissioner Squires. The clerk, please call the roll.
Stead,
Aye.
Schaefer,
Aye.
Squires,
Aye.
Moore,
Aye.
Gillespie,
Aye.
Vinfrock,
Aye.
Danley,
Aye.
Mooney,
Aye.
all in favor, motion carries.
Okay, thank you. All right. You guys want to take a quick break? Okay, we're gonna take a quick break. We'll be back in 5 minutes. Okay, we'll get this moving along again. Welcome back. All right, the next item tonight on our agenda, and our last item, is item number 2. This is ROS 22-110. Mark and R. Angela Vouse. The address is 2830 South Cloverdale Road. This is an appeal of the planning director's approval of a record of survey for a minor land division on 0.95 acres in an R1C zone. First, we're going to hear from staff, Mr. Matt Dennis.
Hello, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. The item before you is an appeal of a minor land division on 0.95 acres in an R1C zone located at 2830 South Cloverdale Road. The proposed minor land division would establish 3 new lots to the east of the existing home and was approved January 13th, 2023. On January 23rd, 2023, an appeal was filed by 14 neighbors with 32 grounds of appeal. These concerns have been consolidated and are summarized on your screen. This presentation will briefly address these concerns. As the subject property is located within the R1C zone, compliance with this zone's dimensional standards are required. The newly proposed interior lots are approximately 7,000 square feet, where a minimum of 5,000 square feet is required. Additionally, the proposed street frontages and average lot widths of the newly proposed lots either meet or exceed the minimum requirements of the R1C zone. The Ada County Highway District plans to widen Cloverdale to allow for an additional travel lane in each direction, along with raised bike lanes from Victory Road to Overland Road. This has been incorporated into the design of the project, which shows a future dedication of right-of-way from the westernmost lot. Additionally, curb, gutter, and sidewalk will be installed along both street frontages as a standard condition of approval for minor land divisions. The sidewalk along Cloverdale will be detached as per ACHD's construction plans. This will enhance the safety at the intersection by more clearly defining and separating the spaces intended for cars and pedestrians, thereby reducing the frequency of conflicts between the two. The newly created parcels would front Peconic Drive in a predictable development pattern to what currently exists and will be required to comply with all setback requirements of the R1C zone. The development code does not require any further privacy mitigation. 33 trees currently exist on site. In total, 12 trees are to remain, and 4 additional trees will be planted along Peconic Drive. Community Forestry reviewed the arborist report and tree mitigation plan, which were identified as exemplary, and concurred with its conclusion that no mitigation is required, since the trees planned for removal either pose a safety threat or are not considered desirable in their age, health, or species. In conclusion, the planning team recommends denial of the appeal, and I will stand for questions.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Next, we'll hear from the appellants. And I have the Vosses as the lead appellant. Okay, come on up.
Hello.
Hi, Mrs. Voss. Just for clarity here, we'll do 10 minutes for your presentation here. Now, I know there's quite a few other people in this group with you as part of the
Yes.
appellant group. You basically all can share 10 minutes. I don't know if you're planning to speak that entire time or if you had others within your group that wanted to speak, but as a group, you get 10 minutes to present here.
Okay. Is that the whole group or just us two?
The whole group. So everybody within your appellant group that would like to speak as part of the appellant group, you
Okay,
can
I
share
thought
this
they-
10 minutes of time.
Okay. I thought they had 3 minutes apiece.
Well, you can also, if they don't testify as part of the appellant group, they will have an opportunity to testify individually and they'll have all 3 minutes
Okay.
at that time.
Thank you.
Does that make sense? Is that clear?
I think so. Does it to you?
Okay. And if you can start with your name and address for the record, please.
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
If you can start with your name and address for the
Yes.
record.
I'm R. Angela Foss, 12101 West Peconic Drive, Boise, Idaho, 83709. First, our intentions are not to stop the applicant from building the property. We are here to make it a win-win situation. I notice the city's version is creating a city for everyone. We feel that this is contributing to the applicant's vision only and not considering ours at all. The city's mission again speaks of everyone. That includes innovating and investing to protect our environment, ensuring a thriving local economy that benefits all. One city, one team for the greatest good. Community experience with wow. There's nothing we can't do better. Lights on our street, a few. We have some. According to the planning director, Tim Keene, and the planning team, page 4, it's recommended that the appeal be denied from 4 letters before we ever met at City Hall. So I'm here to present safety issues. Mr. Kenyon, I wanted the developer, I wondered if he did not notice the fact that there was no parking on Peconic regarding these places. There's only parking for maybe 1 car, except for the people that live in the homes. Excuse my voice. It's difficult to speak at the moment. And the rest of the parking would be outside of the property, infringing on the neighbor's property. And then I would ask him, well, why not? Doesn't a developer pay attention to the parking? Others will give their ideas on parking, but I'll give mine. I suggest 2 homes, not 3, and create a parking lot where the 3rd home site would be, not against Mr. Connolly's home, who is their next door neighbor on the east side of the applicant, and therefore the trees could stay until the arborist says that they have to go now. That would probably save about $10,000. Next, renting. Are these houses going to be sold or renting? Are these houses going to be sold or rented?
Single family homes.
So Mrs. Voss, if you could We'll get to them in 1 second. If you can just pose your questions to us and they'll get an opportunity to speak too. Thank you.
I understand that Mr. McNellis, sitting next to Ms. White, wanted the original plan duplexes that he could retire and make money with the upkeep of the duplexes. Therefore, it would be nice to know if the new plans indicate single-family homes or are they rental? Why does that matter? Okay. Confidence and trust. I've lived here and I've seen 4 houses on a corner burglarized at 3 a.m., 1:03 a.m., jumping over the fence of the neighbor. I've seen 2 houses, 2 house fires, none affected Mr. Colley's home that was rented before he bought the property, where the renters were growing pot in the attic and left an unattached toilet full of feces in it. In the shop, I've seen an armed officer threatening to break down the door at the applicant's home because of the lack of care of their property, constantly piling of gardening rubble and tree limbs. The mattresses outside were before the 23rd of July, 2021, when this all began. Potatoes dumped on the side left to rot. Mrs. Bell, that's here with us tonight, and gathering people to cut up the branches of a tree that had fallen in the street. The applicant blocking the mothers to park when they're waiting for their children to get off the bus to come across the busy road of Cloverdale, and the applicant's terriers barking all the way down the street with no restraint while she was walking them. I have no confidence that they will take care of the property if they rent. And also there's no homes on Victory to Myrtle Ridge that have been built on the back property. Safety. We expect more pollution if the big trees, 33, come down with an increase of carbon emissions. It will be 20 years before the new young trees can provide the same amount of CO2 removal. Plus, our neighbors are changing. We have new families coming into our neighborhood again. If these neighbors have young children, their safety concerns are on the corner of the street with excess traffic. Fire, the fire, I was a Red Cross volunteer of Greater Idaho for 5 years. I experienced the results of home fires after a fire in the Crown neighborhoods. I read about, then verified with Meridian fire departments that would cover the neighborhoods. In other words, these homes, like new homes, are built without the same consistency that old homes have. And the fire department would have difficulty getting into these homes, and a fire alarm may be active in the fire dwelling, but it will not transmit to adjoining buildings. Therefore, we're concerned about our neighbor who might have flammable materials in his shop. Do you need more time now? I'll end there.
I am Mark Voss, 12101 Peconic. I'm one of the appellants. Our chief concern for this whole thing has always been safety of the neighborhood. Now, I disagree with your planning staff. They went on to propose how wonderful it is that Cloverdale is going to be expanded. That is a red herring. Cloverdale Road has nothing to do with it. These homes will front on Peconic Drive, not Cloverdale. So that isn't even an issue here. Safety on Peconic Drive is a real issue. To begin with, Peconic is a very, very narrow road. It was built in the subdivision about 40 some odd years ago. Since then, they've added 3 new subdivisions on the east end of that road and the traffic has become horrendous. Plus, they tout that they're going to curb and gutter Peconic. What's going to happen there is they're going to narrow Peconic as it is restricting traffic flow onto Cloverdale. Another problem is these homes have no parking, 2 cars per lot. If you have extended family living in those homes, up to 5 non-related relatives that the Boise City allows to live in homes like that, you're going to have street parking that's going to be unreal. And if they develop the same property on the opposite side of Peconic as they're going to this particular property, you're going to have permanent on-street parking that's going to restrict that flow down. You can't hardly get down Peconic now when there's 2 cars parked on both sides of it right now. If you drive a larger vehicle, you have to stop and wait for the cars to pass you when you pass like this. 2 cars cannot pass each other. And this is going to compound it. Another thing is we're considering asking for a bike lane there. That will do away with the parking along there. Where are the cars going to go is my question. Where are they going to go? Further into the subdivision. I would suggest that this be denied because the main safety concern was totally ignored. You can't make it safer by crowding it up. And this is right where everybody's trying to ingress and egress on and off of Cloverdale Road. And it's a bottleneck now, but at least they have no sidewalks, so you can actually drive on the dirt a little bit to get by each other in that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, next we'll hear from the applicant.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Brian McNeilis. I reside at 2830 South Cloverdale Road, Boise, Idaho, 83709. I will address each of these 4 issues raised as the grounds for appeal listed on the application for the appeal. Number 1, the increase in traffic on Peconic and Cloverdale roads. Cloverdale Road is scheduled to expand to 5 lanes in 2025. The Ada County Highway Department is in the process of purchasing right-of-ways now. Peconic is but one of several main routes to and from the neighborhood, which includes connections to Overland, Cloverdale, Victory, and 5 Mile roads. The access is really good. They don't have to access Cloverdale Road through Peconic. Number 2, the neighborhood character change due to lot size. The zoning allows for up to 8 lots per acre. Our project is 4 lots. Cloverdale property is not and has never been associated with any subdivision in the area. My family has owned and resided at this residence since 1970, before any subdivisions existed, and when Peconic was just a little irrigation road that farmers used to access their property. Number 3, the unsafe parking and traffic flows. There is no evidence supporting this claim. Furthermore, we have met the guidelines as required by city code for parking. Number 4, safety issues. Okay, this is total conjecture and speculation, and I find it offensive that new homeowners are being characterized as drug users and thieves with delinquent children. Simply unfounded and unrealistic to make that claim. We have followed successfully the Boise City guidelines and laws and ordinances set forth by the Planning and Zoning Commission. The appeal is based entirely on speculation and feelings, not facts. The great state of Idaho, and especially our city of Boise, needs new homes for its continued growth. This project provides these homes while staying within the approved regulations and high standards we all enjoy about our lives in Idaho. We therefore urge the commission to deny the appeal and approve the project to continue.
Hi, good evening. Leslie White, 2830 South Cloverdale Road. I just would hope that you would deny their appeal. I've worked closely with the city planning and zoning, and we've followed all their recommendations. We meet the code. Our lots are oversized. They're 7,000 square feet, and I think that that would be a nice addition for 3 families to have a nice home in the Boise area. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. We're going to check in to see if anyone from the Southwest Ada County Alliance is present. It's the neighborhood association.
Good evening. My name is Tanya Clough, and I'm with Southwest Ada County Alliance. My address is 10800 West Smoke Ranch Drive. Southwest Ada County Alliance opposes this infill. The parcel is located on a mature or on a visible and mature intersection that's very busy. And it's surrounded by half-acre and 1-acre lots. Our main concern is compatibility with the surrounding area. Someone brought up the concern about the loss of trees from 33 to 12. I thought that was very interesting because I don't know what trees are listed as undesirable. I thought all trees were valued, especially in the rural area that we live in. Let's see. I'm concerned about the compatibility of the style of houses. We would be okay with splitting the lot into 2 lots. That way it's compatible with the half-acre and acre lots, but squeezing in 3 more little skinny houses is going to look hodgepodge. I'm concerned about the way the city is handling the infill. They're not worried about the appearance of these mature neighborhoods, and building things like this makes it look very hodgepodge. So I suggest that we I guess not allow the division into 4 lots, but rather 2. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll go ahead and bring this item back before the commission for any questions of the appellant, applicant, or staff.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Gillespie.
Just a question for staff. I just want to make sure. So this is currently, what is the current zoning on this parcel?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, the zoning of the parcel is R1C. It does have R1A adjacent to the east and R1B adjacent across Cloverdale to the west, but the subject parcel is R1C.
Right. And just, for the record, so the proposed, this is just a lot division, right? We don't have any plans for what would be built there, right? This is simply a record of survey to create 3 new lots. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And all 3 of these lots conform to the R1C requirements. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. The dimensional standards. That's correct.
All right. Thank you very much.
Okay, any other questions? Matt, do we get any, I didn't see any correspondence from ACHD on the original application. Is that the case?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, there was no late correspondence from ACHD. However, they did provide agency comments on the application, which were implemented into the report.
Okay, great. Sorry, I must have missed that. I apologize. Obviously, they were supportive of the original application. Were there any concerns or unusual conditions placed on the applicant?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, I'd say the closest thing to an unusual condition would be the taking into account the future dedication of right-of-way. So that's something that's not seen in every single ACHD agency comment provided by ACHD. Other than that, pretty standard conditions of installing curb gutter sidewalk and what have you.
Okay, terrific. And that curb gutter and sidewalk is going to be installed on Peconic Drive, correct? And then it's a detached sidewalk on Cloverdale. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Okay,
Correct.
Great. Thank you. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, great. Thanks, everybody. Okay, we'll go ahead then and open up this item for public testimony. We'll start with folks that are in person. If you're here to testify on this item, you'll all have 3 minutes at the podium here, and please start with your name and address for the record. Podium is free, so we can get started.
My name is Matthew Bell, and I live at 2754 Heritage Avenue, which is in the subdivision that's zoned R1A. When I heard about this appeal, and I'm speaking in support of the appeal of the decision, I did research and found out, I did not know beforehand that that lot was zoned R1C. I found out that all of the lots there on Cloverdale are zoned R1C. All of the lots on Heritage right now are R1A. And it's my understanding that in spite of the fact that all the lots on Cloverdale are zoned R1C, they're actually not, that's not how they're built. There are no empty lots there on Cloverdale. There are no empty lots in the subdivision either. They're built on single-family homes on approximately 1 acre each. And so even though it's zoned R1C, the effective zoning is less dense than even our subdivision. This would change that. One of the objections of the response of the committee was to the objection 5 of the appeal states that the minor land division proposes a similar residential product to what currently exists. That's not true. All of the existing houses on Cloverdale are 1 acre lots approximately, and all of the lots in the subdivision are 1/2 acre lots approximately. The proposed action, the minor land division puts 4 houses on 1 acre, and which is it fits with the R1C zoning, but it's a change. It's a complete change from what exists there now, and it's new. There are no other things. It's a big change. If someone wants to change 1 house to 4 houses on a lot, that's a big change. And all the houses on Cloverdale, the R1C zoning applies to houses on Cloverdale, but if you put the exits on Peconic, it should apply to be consistent with the subdivision 1/2 acre lots.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. Okay.
My name is Kirsten Bell. I live at 2754 South Heritage Avenue. We've lived in that neighborhood for 20 years, and I am going to be reading the statement of someone who could not be here due to work. Thank you for allowing my letter to be read in my absence. I'm unable to attend. My husband and I are 4th generation Boiseans. We believe in everything that the city of Boise provides to our community and have made the intentional decision to remain in Boise and raise our family. We value the neighborhood and our community in Southwest Boise. I grew up in this area, and my husband and I were thrilled when we were able to purchase our first home at Victory and Cloverdale, as we value the larger lot size and the sense of community that the neighborhood has to offer. Southwest Boise has great benefits like larger lot size, older homes, and mature landscapes with a lower population. It also has the disadvantages of minimal pedestrian accesses such as sidewalks, walking paths, and bike lanes. And I don't think that the person who wrote this letter recognized that there's going to be those changes on Cloverdale. We do have a park located less than a mile from our home, but it's for children under the age of 11, and there's no continuous sidewalk access to that location. We have a library a mile from us, but Victory Road does not have a sidewalk, nor does it even have adequate shoulders for walking and biking. Recently, I learned of the proposed development in my neighborhood at 2830 South Cloverdale. While I have to be honest that I am in favor of the development of this lot, as it is currently an eyesore at the entrance of my neighborhood and unsafe in the hot summer due to fire risk. However, I'm concerned with this development and respectfully ask that you reduce the number of homes approved to be built on this lot to require access to the homes to be from Cloverdale and not from Peconic. I commute to downtown Boise for work in the mornings, and Peconic typically has several cars waiting in line to belong to Cloverdale. This line of traffic will be right in front of these new homes, and I anticipate the traffic will increase when the Cloverdale Road project starts in a few years. Sorry. Yeah, our small neighborhood simply doesn't have the road and sidewalks infrastructure to accommodate 3 more families. As I shared at the beginning of my letter, we cherish the city of Boise. I respectfully ask that you could consider reducing the number of homes. Personally, my primary concern is that there are all of the children in our neighborhood, that is their bus stop for elementary school, high school, and junior high. It becomes a very congested area at Cloverdale and Peconic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Kyle Thiem. I live at 2803 South Heritage Avenue, the property adjacent to this proposed construction, just on its northeast side. My wife and I, along with our 2 small children, moved into the neighborhood nearly 3 years ago, and I can proudly say with confidence we've been a net positive to the neighborhood, committed to being good stewards of the community and the lifestyle that so many of us enjoy while living in a low-density neighborhood. I'm against the proposed project for the reason that's related to density transitioning. By allowing lots with only 50 feet of frontage on the existing street built to serve the larger parcels within an R1A zone, it does not conform to the city code mission of harmony of transition of use. I'd like to see the subdivision conform to the 100-foot lot frontage that currently exists on Peconic Drive, or at least serve as an R1B transition zone. There's precedent for this transition just 1,000 feet north of this proposed project. The property is located on South Heritage Place. Our zone is R1B. South Heritage Place is a street that serves as a transition from the R1C properties along Cloverdale and the R1A properties to its east. If I could be permitted to read a letter given to me by a neighbor. Actually, I should be okay on time. This letter was given to me by Joe Stenkamp. He's a neighbor within our community located at 11733 West Peconic Drive. Joe writes, I'm against the subdivision located on the northeast corner of Cloverdale and Peconic Drive. As per City of Boise zoning code, chapter 11-9, Joe cites the purpose for the code, to promote the public health and safety and general welfare of present and future residents. He also cites the applicability. The chapter shall apply uniformly to all land divisions within the city of Boise. However, if a parcel to be subdivided is of such unusual shape or size, or is surrounded by such development or unusual conditions that the strict application of the regulations of the chapter would result in substantial hardship or inequity, the commission or council may waive or modify these regulations. Joe writes, the concern is that currently Peconic Drive has existed to serve larger parcels within an R1A zone in which the minimum lot frontage is 100 feet. Allowing for lots with only 50 feet of frontage on existing street promotes inequity with previously established residents. An existing roadway serving different zoning requirements requires a non-severe transition of use. R1A should transition to R1B and then to R1C. Transitioning from high density R1C to low density R1A on the same street does not conform to the city code mission of harmony and transition of use. Pepperwoods Estate was not designed with this type of shortened access to an individual lot. The zoning map included in the subdivision request shows that any severe transition between R1C and R1A zones do not share the same street or access street. Rather, the street that serves a transition zone are less severe, such as my example, South Heritage Place. Jill concludes, I would like to see the frontage minimum of the subdivision lots to conform to the 100-foot lot frontage that currently exists on Peconic Drive, or at least conform to the transition of R1B, which is a 75-foot minimum lot frontage. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Okay. Anyone else like to testify? The podium is free. Okay.
So this is David's Connolly appeal. He lives in the house east of the applicant. He says, and he lives at 2100 North Peconic Drive, which is across from us. He says that he couldn't be here. He's out of the country at the moment. He says the surrounding lots average 0.545 acres per house. Their current lot is roughly 0.942 acres as measured from the Google Maps. In order for additional housing to need to be split, their lot in half would only be able to build one additional single home. He didn't understand that this property was the R1C at the time. I would open, and you have this letter that he sent, I would be open to them building 2 additional homes, including their current residence, which would total 3. In their current lot, this includes their current dwelling, which equally divided into thirds. This would result in each lot having 0.34 acres with only 70% of the area currently seen on the surrounding lots. Furthermore, the current plans do not appear to show an equal division of land, which would significantly reduce lot sizes below 70% of the neighborhood average. Subdividing this land any further would dramatically change the characteristics of our neighborhood, which has remained quiet and crime-free over the duration of my 7 years at Peconic. I am concerned that the increase of traffic would result from their lot having an additional 4 dwellings constructed. During the last 7 years, I've not had the issue of theft or any manner. I'm concerned that significant increase in population within our neighborhood would change the safe and peaceful atmosphere that everybody expects in this location. My property is currently adjacent to Lot 4, and I do not see sufficient setback between my property line and the construction zone of the 4th. While I understand my neighbors designed to build additional houses, they have not once stopped by my house to discuss this matter in capacity. I feel the city should be requiring a public meeting to discuss the final plans before approval of build.
Okay, thank you. All right, I check to make sure no one left online, it looks like, staff. Okay. All right, final call for any in-person testimony. Okay, great. We'll go ahead and wrap up that piece then. We'll move into rebuttal at this point. So we'll start with rebuttal first from the applicant. So at this point, you guys have 5 minutes for rebuttal for anything you heard in the testimony. Okay, let the record show maybe not.
Well,
That's fine.
As far as the neighborhood, the aesthetics.
Can we get your name? I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, Leslie White, 2830 South Cloverdale Road. It's kind of like all the farms around there have all been split off differently and different builders have come in. So we just happened to be at the entrance of several different subdivisions. In fact, they're all different lot sizes. They go down the hill. There's different houses, there's duplexes. There's all different types of homes down there, as well as they just did a split on Victory, which is a block on the other side, where they did an acre and split it into several lots there as well. So I don't really see how that will affect. It'll look nicer. The houses will be new and clean, and they'll have adequate parking. I think it'll just improve the neighborhood, if anything.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and then next we have a rebuttal for the applicants, or sorry, the appellants. Apologies.
Mark Voss, 12101 West Peconic. With rebuttal, first of all, I'd like to correct the points that they didn't tell you that were true. First of all, they started out telling us that Cloverdale Road is going to be glorious. That is a red herring. They do not use these lots Cloverdale. They will be using Peconic for ingress and egress. When these people that are in our subdivision and those lots go west, they're going to go right down Peconic onto Cloverdale. Next thing that said is there's lots of ways to get out of that subdivision besides Peconic. There are two ways. You either go west on Peconic onto Cloverdale, or you go east down Peconic to Canaro and onto Victory. They're the only two. There's not several ways to get out of it. That is incorrect. The applicants here do not egress or ingress off of Peconic Road. They ingress and egress from their home onto Cloverdale Road. Every other lot that is that R1C designator from Victory Road all the way down to Muirwoods, with the exception of the lot directly across the street from the proposed development, will all, if they develop, will all have to ingress and egress directly off Cloverdale. This lot division, if they're going to do it, should also be required to ingress and egress directly onto Cloverdale, not Peconic. She talks about the Victory Road split of the property. Yes, they did. But they go directly onto Victory Road, which is a section line road, just like Cloverdale is. They did not go through an existing neighborhood. They did not involve any of the residents in the area. They go directly on that way. If this is approved, there's some pretty stark admissions being made here. Number one, profit for the property owner and the developer are more important than safety concerns for all the residents in the area. Admission number two, safety concerns and congestion created by the proposed project are viewed merely as inconvenience and have nothing to do with the residents that are there. Next admission, modifications cannot be made because our lots are too small. We got to have three. They could have less, or they could again go on to Cloverdale Road. Number four, opinions and concern of those who are impacted by the project do not matter. And we're talking here about aesthetics and historical value. Let me put it to this way. In so many words, your planning staff said, well, aesthetics have nothing to do with it. It's all with it, how it's zoned. But let me put it to you this way. Historical aesthetics and precedents only matter to the city of Boise. And we see this when Harrison Boulevard, the North End, Hay Street, South 8th Street, and Warm Springs Avenue Historical Preservation District are involved. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We'll go ahead and bring this item back before the commission to render a decision. Again, this is ROS 22-110.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Danley.
I make a motion that item ROS 22-110, an appeal of the planning director's approval be denied.
Second.
Have a motion to deny with a second by Commissioner Mooney. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman.
Please.
So I'm going to make a few points here. Number one, this is a lot split and a lot split only. This is not a subdivision. This is not a planned development, which whatever the case may be in the future of how this is to be developed would come back before this commission for additional requirements, potentially aesthetics, et cetera, et cetera. At this point, what we have is a lot split. I hear a lot of passion on property rights. That is precisely what is being executed here. The applicant originally, not the appellant to the application, if I'm getting that right, has a property right. That right is memorialized in the zone. The zone is R1C. They could actually go down to 5,000 square feet by right of our law. They have that ability. They're not executing it even to that point. It's 50% larger. So I think it's important to make sure we understand that they have a right too, and they're executing it at this point. I want to talk also real briefly about the traffic issue. As a requirement of this lot split, sidewalks on Peconic will be built. That's a benefit for getting to and from Cloverdale. Now, the claim of it being too narrow. Oh, as somebody who deals in this world, let me tell you, I appreciate the heck out of it being narrow, because congestion means slow, slow means less deadly. If you don't believe that, go drive Fairview or Chinden. That's where fatalities happen because they are fast. Slow speeds mean you have to actually, and as was pointed out, some cases even come to a full stop once in a while. That's a good thing. That's friction. Coming in and out of a subdivision and a bus stop, that's a good thing. That means awareness. That means not just passively driving 40 miles an hour, paying attention to your phone more than the road. That's a good thing. So in this instance, the ingress and egress, one last thing, should go to a local road. The ingress and egress should not be going to an arterial. Introducing a backing in vehicle where it's not expectation. Otherwise, that's exactly where a conflict point would happen. Ingress and egress to a local street, which then quickly transitions to the arterial, is the way to do it. That's the hierarchy of roadway 101. So for all of those reasons, I'll be in support of my own motion.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Danley. Any other comments?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Mooney.
Yeah, I'm really struck and disturbed by the tension between the applicant and the appellant, and it's a microcosm of what we're going to be dealing with here shortly with the zoning code rewrite. And we all want the best for the city. And I'm a little offended by the comments that we only care about the north end or the east end and not the southwest, because that's not the case. And this appeal of the rights of these owners for their home and what they want to do with it is completely in accordance with our law. And you're asking us to not comply with our law. And I don't understand how we can do that. And I'm struggling with some of the comments about burglaries, and we can't afford 3 more neighbors in this area. It's for all those reasons, I'll obviously second and in support of the motion.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Mooney. Any other discussion? Okay. Yeah, Commissioner Moore, yeah, please. Mhm.
So I think in terms of compatibility, I'll always say in support of the motion. In terms of compatibility, I'm saying along Victory, there's some similar size lots in R1C zones. R1C is fronting Cloverdale. It's kind of acting like a buffer between Cloverdale and that R1A or R1B kind of behind it. So it's kind of acting like a buffer from those higher traffic zones. And I'm seeing some similar kind of lot sizes a little bit to the south. It's not directly around it, but it's within our vicinity map, certainly. And so it's a pretty decent radius. And again, a second on the comments about the design review. Obviously this is a application for a record of survey and not the appearance of the houses. There's no house proposed here. But yeah, you can see even with the billboard application at the end of today's agenda, the city, one of the city's requirements is that the billboard can't be visible from a park. So I think the implication that the city only cares about, certain areas or the appearance of certain locations, I think that's just simply not true, just because it is pretty widely and broadly applied. And I think the city does care about all of those places and all the gateways and all of those spaces. So with that, I'll be in support of the motion.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Moore. Commissioner Gillespie, you good? Okay. All right, just real quick, I'm also going to be supporting the motion. I want to commend staff and the applicant for coming up with, I think, a reasonable infill project here on this property. As Commissioner Danley mentioned, your lot sizes here are actually closer to probably an R1B, and your density is closer to R1B, and you're actually, I think, probably leaving a lot, off of this project. So, so kudos to staff and kudos to the applicant for, I think, coming up with a reasonable approach here. I see no reason that this should be denied by any means. You're meeting the letter of the law with our code. All of the responding agencies agreed with that summary as well. So all the best with the project. I am also just going to sound off real quickly. I am a little concerned about some of the comments. I think that, the neighborhood fabric is created by the people that live there. And I would encourage everybody to kind of bring down the temperature a little bit and understand it's 3 more homes in an existing large subdivision of many homes. And I don't think that's going to be detrimental, to the character of the entire neighborhood or the area. So with that, I think we'll go ahead and call the roll. Again, we have a motion to deny the appeal of, ROS 22-110 with a motion by Commissioner Danley and a second by Commissioner Mooney. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Stead.
Aye.
Schaefer.
Aye.
Squires.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
Gillespie.
Aye.
Finbrock.
Aye.
Danley.
Aye.
Mooney.
Aye.
All in favor, motion carries.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. We are adjourned.